Kind of in my notes, I've referred to him as the bathroom fairy because or the toilet fairy because he's a bit wild man, but he's not actually of the fae. He's just an ordinary human who just needs to clean some toilets. Just a heads up, these words and opinions are mine and my own, much like Gollum and the One Ring. We'll attempt to keep most of this as spoiler-free as possible, but if you have any questions about the material in this podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out to doublemoonletters@gmail.com. Thank you, enjoy the podcast.
Los geht's.
Hello everyone, welcome to Letters from a Double Moon. My name is Nahima, and thank you for your presence here tonight. Okie dokie, how have you all been? I think it's been a good couple of weeks, good 2 weeks in the world. Haven't really been keeping up to breast with the news, to be honest, so I don't actually know what's happening. I'm doing a bit of a news blackout, if I'll be real. But essentially, I hope it's been good. I hope you've been feeling well and healthy, and I hope that you've been feeling ready for my second podcast episode. I'm definitely feeling ready for it myself. Basically, if you haven't been listening to the first episode or you don't know me, my name is Nahima. I manifest only good things for bees. I have a penchant for tea, perfume, books, and sometimes get round to playing my game of the month, which in this case is Zelda's Breath of the Wild. I'm stuck on this bit, though, right in the beginning of the story where Link, I think his name's Link, I don't know, little blonde man, has to find some shrines for old mate, and I don't know where to go. So hopefully I'll get round to watching a walkthrough or reading a walkthrough or something that'll tell me how to do it, because I'm really stuck. Or I might just ask someone who's played it before. Right, so apart from that, and apart from how you've all been, which, well, I hope, again, we are all here, gathered all here for the express purpose of listening to me talk about my book that I've been reading the past couple of weeks, and the book that I wanted to talk about and that I teased last time. So essentially, this book is a very special book for me because I've helped to publish it for the imprint Aurora House Publishing. It's a great little independent indie publishing house, and I've loved working for them. I've worked for them for the past 3 years on and off, and loved every moment. Done quite a few books, quite a few publishers, also a bit of book marketing / book promo, as well as, actually, what else have I done? Oh yeah, appraisals, so writing reports based on how I feel about unsolicited manuscript drops that some authors do, which we welcome. It's very good to kind of, as I mentioned, get to see what people are writing these days, and to give them feedback on what they've been doing. So this book obviously would have then passed the appraisal stage, passed the editing stage, passed every stage that you get to in the publishing game. And it definitely is a great trilogy, in fact. However, I'm only going to be talking about book 1 today. I can probably tease bits and pieces of book 2 and 3, but that's not really the point. The point is to start with the start, isn't it? Especially when it comes to a trilogy. You want to begin at the beginning and not necessarily start in the middle or at the end. Or, I mean, do you honestly, if you feel like that's the way that you want to read a trilogy. But generally, the general consensus is start from the beginning. So, essentially, I'll tell you what it is in a moment. Just gearing up to kind of gather my thoughts and feelings about how I feel about this one. Probably will get a little bit emotional, to be honest, because this is a very special moment, but we'll see. So the book that I'll be talking about today is, drumroll, An Ocean Away. Let's hook the book for you, shall we? So An Ocean Away is the first in the William Stewart saga. It's written by an author named Peter Clarke. And now essentially Peter wanted to kind of write a story that explored within historical fiction the life of an ancestor, his great-grandfather, which is a brilliant premise if you kind of think about it in terms of you kind of connecting with yourself, you're connecting with your family, but at the same time you're writing a very engaging, thrilling kind of book. So the story goes a little something like this. Essentially, you've got the Stewart family. They're living in kind of in poor conditions in a little hut that's outside of Belfast in Ireland, or maybe, out in a rural area somewhere. You've got your mum, your dad, you've got a couple of kids, and in amongst the kids, there's a boy named William Stewart. So he essentially falls in love with a girl who is from a different religion. So I believe they're Catholic or Protestant. No, they're Protestant, sorry, and she's Catholic. So you can imagine kind of there's a great divide during the 18th century in Ireland to do with religion, and essentially they're caught up in the middle. It's a little bit like a classic star-crossed lovers scenario, and within that scenario, instead of the pair kind of sticking it out and keeping together and just, in the face of adversity kind of triumphing, winning, creating, a family of their own, what happens is that William's father sends William away because he knows that nothing good will ever come of their relationship and they're going to be persecuted potentially or shunned by the whole community on both sides, so it's just not going to turn out well for both of them. And then they'll end up unhappy and, in a cycle of the people that have come before, kind of in a similar situation. William, in his naivety and in his fresh youthfulness, kind of goes on an adventure. He ends up on a ship after a couple of hiccups and little mini adventures here and there. He ends up on a ship bound for Australia, and essentially the story kind of meets its conclusion when they reach the shores of Melbourne, I believe. It is Melbourne that they landed in, not Sydney. So essentially, this story is wonderful. I loved it from the first moment I read it to even now when I reread it a couple of weeks ago. It was just a joy to read. And essentially, so the podcast title is called A Matter of Sturm und Drang, which literally means a matter of storm and stress, which is why I chose the title, because it literally reflects what happens in the book. Lots of storm, lots of stress. It doesn't actually reflect the real essence of the literary movement of the 18th century. That would be interesting, but no, it's not. It's less plain, I suppose, in meaning than that. It definitely isn't, of the core of the Sturm und Drang. It's more of a historical drama about family, and it's definitely doesn't end in the tragedy that usually would come about when it comes to the traditional Sturm und Drang movement. So essentially, themes that kind of pop up in this story would be, kind of what happens when you're young, and you're kind of full of adventure, and you're facing a lot of adversity because you're young and you're naive and you're not sure what you're doing with your life. So this book really explores like a youthful triumph over all the adversity that kind of gets thrown at you. It also explores the natural world, so definitely lots of mention of the sea between, Europe and then Australia. There's lots of there's beautiful mention of, the natural world. There's descriptions of Ireland, back in out of Belfast, like William's original home. Peter mentions, lots of beautiful kind of imagery, the grass, the trees, the mist, the fog, all that, that kind of binds the place and gives it that iconic imagery, the greenness. And then that huge contrast is when William, kind of goes overseas, and all there is this vast expanse of maybe blue or blue-black, or depending on the colour of the sea, and then also the grey and the blue of the sky, and it really kind of evokes just beautiful imagery that you feel really matches the hope in the book, and the love for life, and the hope for a good life, and that kind of way of thought, or school of thought, I guess you could say. There's definitely some really favourite parts of the book. One of my, in the beginning, there's this bit where William he's in a, I don't know, you could call it a pub or like some kind of watering hole, where he stayed the night, and he said to the lady who's the cook, hey, I need to get up at 6 because I'm at the docks, due at the docks, and I have a job. And so she says, yeah, okay, we'll get the toilet man to wake you, and it should all be good at 6 o'clock in the morning. So he is a bit groggy in the morning, and he wakes up thinking that he's encountered a faery who's kind of wild and mystical and is saying, wake up, wake up. But it's actually the toilet man, which is actually just the funniest part of the book. And I keep always kind of, in my notes, I've referred to him as the bathroom fairy, because or the toilet fairy, because he's a bit wild man, but he's not actually of the fae. He's just an ordinary human who just needs to clean some toilets. Peter also tends to write some really... The animals in all the books, actually, in the trilogy, have a wonderful, charming kind of quality to their personality. And they actually have real personality. When you have a pet, they seem to all be different. They all have a different little way of living and a way of expressing themselves, and Peter definitely did a stellar job kind of encapsulating that personality in the animals. So, say, the cows on the Lady Grace, which is the name of the ship that takes William and all the crew and passengers to Australia. There's these cows, and they need to be milked in the middle of a storm, and it's heart-wrenching to kind of think about the pain and the fear the animals must be going through, but in it all there's a bit of humour, and there's a bit of humour and a bit of laughter that kind of happens. So of course the cow is grateful to be milked, and also this is hilarious bit when the sailors are remarking that the oxen, some of them have unfortunately died due to the rough nature of the sea and the kind of banging them about in their pens. I think there's something about chickens, but in amongst it all, they're saying that the pigs, they were the best of all. They were natural sailors in a way, and that just made me, in amongst all the storm and the stress, that comes with being stuck on a ship in the middle of a raging storm. It just made me laugh, and it added a bit of levity to the whole chapter. So I really feel like An Ocean Away is the kind of book for people who don't love the sea but want to still read about it and are a little bit curious about what it's like to be on the sea. So that's 100% how I feel. I'm not a person who loves unknown places and deep places like the sea or space, for that matter. So sci-fi is a little bit difficult for me to read sometimes, especially if it's based... if they're out in the sea. Oh, sorry, out in the unknown wilds of, I don't know, the galaxies. And black holes and all that. That's kind of, a little bit difficult to read because it's so scary. But the sea is another one. You don't know what's in it. You don't know what's under the water. You don't know what's at the very bottom of the sea. Maybe you do. Please tell me if you do, because that would be interesting. But honestly, it just makes me feel very uncomfortable. And I've been out there. I've been out on the sea, and it was an okay experience. But honestly, it's better when I'm on land and I have my legs firmly on the ground and they're not moving. But like I was saying, though, this book is about the sea, but for people who don't love the sea. And that makes it a wonderful, cozy kind of read when you're stuck in your lounge room or in your bedroom, wherever you read a book, in your little cozy chair. And you can kind of feel and imagine everything that's happening in the story, but you're stuck, or you're not stuck. Well, you're seated somewhere dry and warm and cozy and hygge, as they say in Denmark. And yeah, you're kind of just moseying along, feeling the wind on your face and the waves under your feet, but you're not actually anywhere near them. But moving on, I also loved about this book the fact that I was able to learn new vocabulary. Now, I've been alive for quite a while. That's a bit of a strange way to put it. I mean, like, I'm of a certain age where I've managed to read a lot of books in my time, and my vocabulary is pretty much developed in English, well developed, but I'm still learning new things as we go along, especially when I read. So, jibe or gibe was a new word that I learned. I have no clue what it means literally, or what it might look like, but going by the definition from the Oxford Dictionary, it means to change course by swinging the sail across a following wind. So basically just means that they changed direction, and along with that direction, the sail moved. I guess that means it's stuck to the mast, and then it just, the bit at the bottom that sticks out swings around. I don't know. There are also some really beautiful turns of phrases in An Ocean Away. So Peter, you'll know, he's a very skilled writer. He I guess he's widely read, therefore he writes, with an elegance, and a lot of his kind of descriptors of the nature, the natural world, and then of the people and the surrounds of the characters. So he uses like different devices to kind of make you feel like you're really there and that you're really seeing what he's describing. So there's things like the windless sea, like just the way the words are placed together just really evokes a lot of imagery. And then he also describes the Lady Grace, so the ship that is the central focus of the story. He describes her as, lifting up her skirts and dancing across the sea at one point, which is such a beautiful way to describe the way a ship moves through the water, because honestly it is like she's lifting up her skirts and having a little jig, a little dance across a vast sea, like maybe even if it was ice, it would probably be a bit easier to stand on it, but yeah, it's so beautiful. There's also funny moments in An Ocean Away. There's funny moments dotted throughout, but one that I particularly found hilarious was that the bilge is apparently perfume to a sailor's nose. Now, I don't know about you, but a bilge, if you don't know what it is, I guess it's essentially like the ship's toilet. So all that stuff that comes out of the toilet gets put in there and then emptied into the sea after a moment. So that one was quite funny, because the sailors did not seem to be appreciating the beautiful bouquet of the toilet, which of course makes sense, honestly. But yeah, I think overall what I love the most about An Ocean Away is that it's so fresh, so full of hope. And the subsequent novels that come after, of course, kind of tie everything together and make you feel like you're seeing this whole, which you are. You're seeing this whole life of the person, the writer's ancestor. And you're seeing the whole cycle, I guess, of the author's life. And then how cyclical and how it compares to the life of his father or the life of the father before him. And it really feels complete and whole. Yeah, I really appreciate a lot about this trilogy, the William Stewart saga, because it kind of brings me back to my own thoughts about my own ancestry. Even at a base level, it brings me back to the relationship I have with, the country, with my country is My home is Australia, and I don't, as much as I learnt about it in school, the history of everything, the 18th, 16th, 17th centuries, all that, and when people started to come to this country to gold dig, or because of the gold rush, or even just to relocate to somewhere different. Maybe even it was advertised in the past that it was like the ideal, idyllic, sunny, never rainy sort of location. So it kind of brings me back to getting more in touch with a country that I maybe don't know much about, even though I've lived here for a long time. There's aspects of it that I will never know, or aspects of it that I will learn, but through books and through reading, and that's what I've been doing with this William Stewart saga, with other similar books in the genre. And it might not be for everyone because it is historical fiction, but despite that, I do encourage to give it a go, give historical fiction a go, because it honestly gets you in touch with a deeper part of yourself and in the past as well, and kind of ties everything together. And it's honestly a very good way to go traveling without having to even leave your seat. And that's what I love about a good book. And this is certainly a good book. It's a well-written trilogy. But yeah, I think it's time to come back to this part of the moment, and to come to the part where we're at this point of the episode where it's not quite the end, but nearing the end. And we'll come to the moment where you need to, well, not need to, but where you may indulge me in this moment, where I'll thank the author for their contribution to the world of books, the world of literature, and essentially write them a little letter just to say thank you. So for one more moment, I'll have you indulge me. And if you've made it this far, again, like last time, I would like to say thank you for making it this far. It is always good to know that we have similar interests at heart, and we can really bring forward everything to this moment to kind of say thanks to our favourite authors, the author that I've chosen, or even just an author that you're reading right now. Just take a moment kind of to, say thank you with me, and on this journey as we go along, we will, give thanks. So in a moment, I will begin, and let's just take this moment to reflect. Dear Peter, it's been a good 3 years getting to know you and getting to know your words. You've made me laugh, cry, and cheer. It's not an easy thing to do, to be a writer. It takes a lot of guts, work, hard work, and luck, and not to mention all that marketing. Yet with fortitude and grace, you've managed to do it. You've even written 2 more books. Fancy that, a trilogy. It's been such a pleasure and a great achievement for both of us to watch you become the writer that you've wanted to be, and a privilege to see you through. 3 5-star reviews ain't bad at all, sir. You've started off with a simple idea, to know more about your ancestors and to connect with your family. I think it's become so much more, though. You've given them life once more, and with that resurrection came that deeper connection and respect that you might have been seeking. I'm proud of you, and I hope that you feel as accomplished as you wanted to feel. And by creating 3 books, you've reached every goal that you wanted to achieve. So thank you. It's been a pleasure. With an ever-loving heart, Nahima. Okay, so today we've talked about Peter Clarke's An Ocean Away, which makes part of the William Stewart saga. This one is the first book in the trilogy, and essentially we followed William from boyhood to maybe manhood, but maybe not necessarily manhood, just his journey from Ireland to Australia, and it marks the very beginning of his adventure. Or maybe even the close of the first chapter of his adventure. But yeah, essentially, I do hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Send us an email at doublemoonletters@gmail.com if you like, or leave a rating. It would be greatly appreciated. And what will we talk about next time? So the next episode, I'm looking to talk about a book that I actually really hate. One that inspires such a feeling of derision in me because I just find it so boring. But essentially, I'm going to give it another go. I'm going to challenge myself to read it, and I'm going to ensure that I read it in time for the next episode, so that I can share with you all my thoughts. It's been many years since I've tried to read it the last time, so let's see how I go. Fresh, new eyes, so new me, new book, essentially. That's me for this episode, listeners. I hope you've enjoyed my contribution to the world of lit podcasting. Until we read again, stay safe out there, wherever you might find yourself. And as I always say, cue the music. Moon, 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 moon.